Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Protecting and Recovering Your Virtual Environments. This special webinar event is brought to you in partnership with our friends at Rubrik. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us on the webinar today. We do appreciate your support. We want to help to help you to better protect your virtual environment. This is a hot topic right now. Protecting your data with so many malicious attacks going on about customer data out there. It's being held for ransom, it's being sold. And so we in IT who are tasked with protecting our data, we've just got to, do whatever we can. And we've got a really innovative solution that you'll be learning about on the event today. Before we get started, there's just a few things that you should know about. First off, my name is David Davis from Actual Tech Media, and I'll be serving as the moderator. As always here, we want these events to be educational, and we encourage your questions. You can ask your questions there in the questions pane. I see many of you have already said good morning or hello from across the United States and around the world, and we appreciate that. But we'll be doing a dedicated Q&A session, and we do want your technical questions on today's topic. So as you're watching the presentation today, if something comes into your mind, you're not sure if you should ask it, we encourage you to do that. We also have a number of resources there in the handout. In the handouts tab, I want to call your attention to, there's a link to join Rubrik for a live demo with the upcoming Rubrik live event series. So make sure that you check out that link in the handouts tab. Also a link to get started with Rubrik. There are a number of 101 series demo videos that you can check out. So some excellent resources in the handouts tab. And then at the end of the webinar, I'll be announcing the winner of our Amazon $300 gift card door prize. If you're watching this on demand, of course, the drawing would have already occurred. The prize terms and conditions can be found right there in the handouts tab as well. And then today we're also running our best question prize for a $50 Amazon gift card. Of course, you have to ask a question and meet the prize policy as well. All right, so with that, I'm excited now to introduce you to today's two expert presenters. Welcome, Christina Avrayanova, Principal Product Marketing Manager at Rubrik, and Mr. Mike Preston, Technical Marketing Engineer at Rubrik. Christina and Mike, it's great to have you on the event today. Take it away.
Thank you, Dave. Today we begin with the story of Zephyr Fashion Group. We'll follow by a demo, and then we'll do a quick recap. So let us begin. Zephyr Fashion Group is a leading global fashion house headquartered in Gravity Falls, Oregon. It has multiple product lines, but most of the business is coming from an established flagship product line, Mabel. Zephyr has recently acquired a small line of stores called JED, which sells watches and accessories. Zephyr's environment is mostly core infrastructure powered by vSphere, utilizing individual data centers, stretch clusters, and VMC on AWS. The retail outlets leverage cloud-native workloads, and JED, their recent acquisition, has standardized on Nutanix AHV to provide infrastructure services. For data protections, ZFG is using Rubrik. Rubrik is delivering a true platform with core technologies to provide zero-trust data management for all applications in the data center, and in the cloud. Rubrik provides data immutability, append-only file systems that ensures that once written, data cannot be modified, compromised, or encrypted, thus protecting it from ransomware attacks. SLA Policy Engine, an intuitive policy framework that makes it simple to define RTOs and RPO requirements and then apply just a handful of policies across all applications. This eliminates the hundreds of backup jobs that are bane of IT administrators, freeing up valuable time for higher value add projects. Anomaly detection automatically discovers suspicious activity of their data, such as ransomware-driven encryption, and provide alerts so that IT teams can quickly and precisely investigate security incidents. Application recovery. a rapid recovery of applications and data at mass scale or one file at a time. And lastly, Rubrik is an API-first design, delivering all data management services via open APIs for full-fledged automation and integration into the IT environment. All of this is delivered as a unified, service-based platform that can be deployed in the data center or in the cloud. But as luck would have it, ZFG has been target of a cyber attack. Naturally, there is a state of panic. John is messaging Tina. Tina, the payroll app is down. We can't access the timesheets. Maybe there was an attack. We need to trace what else may have been affected. Tina replies, got it, I'm on it. I'll let you know what has been affected. A short while later, Tina replies, affected systems have been identified. I have restored from the latest copy before the attack. Everything is up and running now. Great, thanks, says John. We'll need to revise those security trainings though. But now let's see a live demo of how Tina was able to quickly identify the blast radius of the attack, understand what has been infected and if sensitive data has been exposed, and then proceed with recovery of the clean copy. Mike, over to you.
All right, thanks, Christina. So now that we've survived the attack, let me play the role of ZFG's IT department, and I'll show you exactly how to recover from attacks like the one Christina just walked through. As any good technologist, the first thing we really want to do is identify the blast radius. We want to ensure that we completely understand the scope of the attack and what exactly has been affected. I'll walk you through a product called Rubrik Radar, which uses machine-based learning in order to detect anomalies and identify that scope for us. Second, once we find out what services, VMs, and files are impacted, the next step is usually revolving around identifying if any of that data affected is sensitive in nature. For this, I'll show you Rubrik Sonar, a data governance application that can identify predefined regulations such as HIPAA or PCI, as well as any custom regulations that may be applicable to your organization. Next, we get to recovery. Obviously, we want to get back up and running as quickly as possible, and Rubrik provides a multitude of different ways to do that. I'll walk through a bunch of our recovery options and explain when you would want to use one over the other, and we'll recover a few services for ZFG. And with Rubrik's Zero Trust Data Management, we can always ensure that our backups, once they are written, are immutable, meaning ransomware doesn't flow into our backup environment and encrypt our last line of defense. And finally, anytime there's been an attack, security teams are usually chomping at the bit to get in there and triage exactly what happened. I'll show you how we can build a clean room, basically an isolated network where we can instantly restore different point-in-time copies of our applications into. That way, the security teams can do their triage, check different restore points, and get to the root cause of the issue, all without having to worry that data is going to escape into the production network. So with that, let's jump into the lab and get going. First, we enter Rubrik Polaris. Polaris is a SaaS-based offering by Rubrik that provides a global view of ZFG's environment. So here we can see that we have a number of Rubrik clusters in this environment. One could be in California, one in London, one in APAC. The point is we can manage them all from this unified interface. We can also see some nice rolled up stats as to how compliant we are in terms of our RTOs, as well as roll up of events that have been taking place. Now, one interesting event here is the anomaly event that's been detected. This means that Rubrik Radar has flagged some suspicious activity within our environment. So let's drill into it. So right away, I can see our file server listed here, and we can get a little more information by drilling into it. We can see that on August 20th, Radar has detected a number of anomalies, a number of files being created, deleted, and modified, as well as high levels of encryption, a sure staple of a ransomware attack. Radar does this by taking two concurrent snapshots or backups and processing the metadata around them, analyzing them, and looking for key differences and anomalies, and then reports all that back to us. So let's go ahead and investigate this backup a little further. we can drill into exactly what's been affected. So we can browse through these folders here and we can see that indeed our file share directory has been attacked. This is one of the huge benefits of Radar, is we can quickly see exactly where the ransomware is spread to and what it's impacted. A pretty tedious job if it needed to be performed manually. So if we wanted to, we could select some folders here and click next, and we get a few options. We can download these known good copies to our workstation for further investigation. We can restore them back to the original location, or if we wanted to, we could recover to a different folder somewhere on the network. In the sake of this VM though, it's pretty infected. I think the best route is to restore the complete VM. So I'll exit out of here, and then I'm going to select to recover the full snapshot. Again, we get some more options. Like before, we can recover specific files and folders, or we have something called export. Export is a traditional type of recovery where we would copy all of the data off of the Rubrik platform and restore it back to the production data stores. We then have live mount. Live mount's much faster than the traditional export. In the case of a live mount, the Rubrik platform actually becomes a data store within your environment. And a new VM is created, and its disks map directly to those backup files located within Rubrik. Basically, this allows us to recover in essentially as fast as the underlying operating system can boot. We can also perform live mounts on individual disks if we'd like, and finally we have something called instant recovery. Instant recovery is very similar to live mount as it utilizes the Rubrik platform as a data store, but with the addition of it actually deprecates the original VM. Live mount won't touch the production source, whereas instant recovery will. In both live mount and instant recovery, we can get back up and running really quickly and then simply storage vMotion our data back to the production data store at a time that's really right for us. Now, since this is a pretty important VM that ZFG needs in order to get their employees paid, I'm going to go ahead and do a live mount on this. Live mounts are really simple. We just select where we want this VM to live. I'll just pick one of our hosts here and click finish. Rubrik basically does the rest. So we can click into the event here and we can see what's going on behind the scenes. So Rubrik's presenting them underlying backup files as a data store, calling the proper APIs into VMware to create a new VM with those disks. And we can see this process has started and it's happening pretty fast. So let's jump into vCenter and have a look. So I'll get logged in here. And then I'll go take a look at the cluster that the host belongs to. And we can see our live mounted file server has actually already been created and is in the status of booting up. So essentially our file server is back online. So let's move on to the second task that we're faced with. Quite often, legal teams want to know a little more than just what services were affected, right? They want to know if any data in those services provided were part of some sort of regulation or compliance that the org needs to adhere to. So let me show you how we can find that out. We'll flip back to Polaris and I'll jump into an application called Sonar. So right away, we can see that Sonar's found a bunch of data that's being classified as sensitive. And if we head to our objects that are monitored here, we can see our file server is actually part of that and it contains some sensitive hits. So drilling in, we get that same folder browser where we could drill into exactly where these files are located. And we can see exactly what classification these files belong to. So in this case, we had a ransomware attack on our file server, which contained a bunch of data classified as US financials, PII, PCI, probably something our legal team would want to know about. So we can easily download a CSV of these affected files and send that across to them. Furthermore, we can also see exactly what users had access to this data at that specific point in time, which might be really useful to the security team to help pinpoint, any unsecure entry points or, compromised accounts. If we head up to management, I'll show you what Sonar actually comes with in terms of policies. So there's a number of pre-built policies for all the major compliance regulations. Now, you can use dictionary or regex entries as well to configure your own analyzers if your sensitive data doesn't fit into these sort of pre-compiled categories. So we've recovered our file server. We let legal know about any possible implications. We can now move on to that exposed web application. So we'll jump back into VMware and let's have a look. So our web app's basically made up of these two VMs, SQL01 and Web01. If we jump on the console for SQL, we can see that indeed it's been attacked. We have the ransomware message coming up. So to restore these VMs, I'm going to jump back into our local cluster to this data center rather than go through Polaris. No specific reason. I just want to show you that restores can be done without the need for Polaris or an internet connection, which is quite common during an attack scenario. So I've logged in, but I do want to note that we do support MFA on our local clusters as well. This is all part of Rubrik's Zero Trust Data Management solution. We're always thinking about how we can provide you with the most secure, immutable platform without sacrificing simplicity. So this is the main dashboard for the cluster. You can basically see an overview of what's happening with the system, what tasks are running, how much capacity we have left, how our data reduction is performing, and whatnot. We can also see a nice ring graph here as to how many VMs we have, how many are protected, and more importantly, what are we not protecting? And it's not just VMs either. If we expand this, you can see we support VMware, Hyper-V, physical Windows, Linux, SQL, Oracle, and as well as all of the cloud native applications like EC2 and Azure VMs and GCP. So the two services we want to restore though are VMs, so I'll head to virtual machines and then vSphere VMs. Now I can use my quick search here to narrow my results. I know these all start with ZFG, so let's filter by that. And there's my SQL, so let's dive into it. Now we can see a nice little calendar view here showing all of the backups that we've taken of this VM. Let's just move back and select an earlier snapshot that isn't infected with ransomware, and we'll click the ellipsis to see our options. Now, as you can see, we have those similar recovery options, right? Things like live mount, instant recovery, as well as we have the ability to do things like place certain backups on legal hold, meaning they won't be deleted even if the retention limit is met. We do have one new feature available to us here though called in-place recovery. Now, in-place recovery is new within our latest release, and it basically allows us to restore only those blocks that have changed, and it restores them back to the original virtual machine. So as you can imagine, this really saves us a lot of time if we need to restore VMs with very, very large disks, but have very, very little change rate, as only those change blocks need to be copied back. So let's go ahead and run this. Now, since this is affecting the original source VM, we do have the option here to keep a vSphere snapshot. That snapshot will refer to the source VM as it stands now. That allows us to always roll back our changes if need be. I'm good with the defaults here though. I'll just click recovery. All right, the task is kicked off. Let's take a look at it. As you can see, it's calculated we need to restore around 2 gigabytes worth of data back to this VM. So at this point, it's powering off that production VM, taking that vSphere snapshot, restoring the data, and then powering it back on and removing the snapshot. So through the magic of video here, we see that took roughly a couple minutes to complete. So let's go take a look at that production VM in VMware. So I'll launch a console to our SQL VM again, and let me get logged in. And there we have it. No more lock screen. No need to pay the ransom. We've restored a known good copy directly over top of our production VM, and we're back up and running. So this finally brings us to our last demo. If you can remember, the ZFG security team has been bugging me to deploy some sort of isolated network or clean room or sandbox, whatever you want to call it. They want to mount some restore points into it so they can test out different things, run their security tools, and see if they can't get to the root cause of the attack. So let me show you how to do this. First, in VMware here, I've created a new VM network called VM Isolated on a single host. And as you can see, it contains no uplinks. So there's no communication to the outside world for any VMs that are residing on this network. Secondly, I have a small Linux-based NAT router that I've deployed. One NIC is attached to the production network, and the other NIC's attached to this isolated network. Now, the isolated network's IP on this Linux router is actually our production gateway. That way, when the VMs get live mounted into this isolated network, they'll actually see the original production gateway. They'll actually think that they're in production, and they'll be able to talk to each other without any modification. And of course, I've added proper firewall and IP table rules. They've all been configured to ensure data can't traverse between the two NICs on my router. So with that, let's deploy some VMs into this network for our security team. So we'll jump back into Rubrik. We'll go find our VMs that power that external web application. That's SQL 01 and Web 01 again. And I'll select these and head to batch recovery, and we'll recover them both at the same time. I'm going to choose to live mount these, put them on the host where I have the isolated network, and begin the process. All right, now we can jump back into VMware and have a look. So we'll start by logging into our web server machine. I'll just simply put my domain credentials in here and oh, wait, I can't sign in. It can't find a domain controller, right? It's in an isolated network. Well, thankfully, this is an easy fix. So let's jump back into Rubrik, and now I'll search for my domain controller, and let me go ahead, find a restore point, and I'll issue a live mount on it as well. I'll place that on the same host, put it into that isolated network, and click mount. So that process is kicked off now. And remember, it's very, very fast. So let's jump back onto our web server and see if we can't log in now. So I'll put my domain password in again, and there we go. We're in. We've successfully granted our security team a copy of our production environment as it was at the time of the attack. And we can see that the virtual machines all within this isolated environment are acting just as if they were in production, right? We can mount the production domain controllers in there, production DNS if we need to. If it's a 3-tier app, you can have all of the services inside these isolated networks so they can properly do their triage. So with that, let's jump back into the slides and we'll recap everything. So hopefully you can see right now how Rubrik is doing much more than just backup. And in the case of ZFG buying into the complete Rubrik platform, this was absolutely the right choice and the right solution. They could identify the scope of the ransomware attack with Rubrik Radar, something that's not super easy to do. They've identified exactly what data has been affected and what that data contains with Sonar, making sure they're still adhering to any data governance regulations that they might have in place. Secondly, they ensured they were on the latest release. This is another thing that ZFG did right. Keeping Rubrik up to date is always a good idea. ZFG was able to get access to all the various recovery methods, including the new in-place recovery feature, which drastically reduces the recovery time objectives. And finally, powering all of this is Rubrik's Zero Trust data management platform. And at the heart of that lies immutability. The fact that once data has been written to Rubrik, it can never be changed. Well, this always ensures that your backups, your last line of defense, are always going to be there to save the day. So with that, I want to open it up for questions.
Great presentation, Mike and Christina. I really love that demo. Thanks for sharing that demo with us as well, Mike. We do have some questions for both of you from the audience. Let's see. If you have a question, now is the time to get it in. There's lots of great questions coming in. I'm going to start with this one from Charles. Charles, who's asking, with the proliferation of ransomware, how do you keep a backup from getting corrupted by some of the, ransomware attacks out there that are attacking the backup data?
Yeah, I can take that, Christina, if you want. Essentially, that's the whole Zero Trust data management. So it's a number of features and a number of things that we built into the product, but really at the heart of that lies immutability. And that's provided by a custom file system that we've built in-house that sits on the Rubrik platform. And essentially, every single call, everything that writes into that platform must be authorized and authenticated. All the communication is encrypted. So that includes even communication between Rubrik nodes or even within a node. All of that needs to be authorized and authenticated. And when it gets laid down onto that file system, it's laid down in an append-only fashion. So essentially, once a backup is written to the Rubrik platform, it can't be changed, even by Rubrik itself. It can be expired, so it can be picked up by garbage collection and things like that. And there's a bunch of safeguards on top of that, such as being able to set a retention lock on our SLA domains. So admin can't just go in and make a change that's going to expired data and things like that. But essentially, once the backup is written to disk, subsequent backups are append only, and then we just sort of orchestrate those blocks when we go to restore to make that a full backup, if that makes sense. That's essentially our immutability in a nutshell. And it's never exposed over, especially in a write-only mode, over common protocols like NFS or SMB or things like that.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. That's a critical feature, I believe, of this solution, especially with all these attacks happening of late. So let's see. Next question, they're asking, does Rubrik support multi-cloud environments, specifically Azure and AWS? And if yes, is there a single console if you have multiple instances of Rubrik?
Absolutely, answer is yes. So,
no, don't worry. I mean, I was kind of going through the question panel and trying to moderate the questions, but yes,
okay.
But go ahead. You start it.
All right, no problem. No, absolutely. We support sort of the big three players, Azure, AWS, and Google Cloud. We support them in a number of ways. There's something called Cloud Out, which is our ability to archive those old backups up to cheaper and cloud storage, especially those backups that we're just keeping around for compliance reasons. We also support them in terms of backing up cloud native instances, so backing up your EC2 instances or your Azure VMs. And yes, it's one console feature of Rubrik. We pride ourselves on simplicity. So how we integrate into all those clouds, all of that's sort of abstracted away. So when you set up cloud native protection for Azure, it's pretty much the same as setting up cloud native protection for AWS. And the same goes for archiving and things like that. So you don't really need to go and learn all these new technologies. And we have a lot of customers that sort of compliment us on this. Is maybe they're a big AWS shop and they acquire a company that is a big Azure shop, and they don't really know anything about Azure, but they can easily sort of plug that into the Rubrik platform, so they can back all of this stuff up and perform data management functions on it while they're doing a migration or whatever their plans are. So
excellent. Yeah, I love that single point of management, especially with more and more companies using multiple clouds and having multiple locations. So also kind of along that lines, there's a question here about segregation of duties, where one person cannot easily delete data without secondary approval. Is that something that Rubrik supports?
Yep. We're fully implemented with RBAC, so the administrators can go ahead and they can set up the different policies and set up what different users have access to. And I kind of hinted at SLA retention lock. That's probably exactly what this person's looking for. So essentially what happens when we define the policy, we can say, I want this SLA policy to be locked. So what that means is nobody at all can make changes that's going to affect the data in a negative way, that's going to decrease the amount of restore points that we're keeping. So that essentially gets locked. And then when you want to make those changes, you have to engage Rubrik support. And during that process of onboarding with Rubrik, you identify 2 people within your organization. So they have to go and identify those people. So those people would actually have to give Rubrik support the okay to unlock that SLA. So that's exactly why that's in place.
Excellent. There's another question here. They're asking if Rubrik can run as a virtual appliance.
Yep. So we're essentially a software company. So, you can deploy us in a number of different ways. We do sell our software bundled on an appliance. That makes it real easy just to slap it in your data center and get it working. We also sell, our software can run on, on your vendor of choice. So if you're, always buy HPE hardware, you get a really good deal on that hardware. We can go ahead and work with you to get Rubrik installed on, one of your Proliance or whatever it is that's your the virtual appliance route. We have people that run Rubrik in the cloud. So, it runs as EC2 instances or Azure VMs. And then we also offer our Edge appliance, which is virtual, which essentially is built to sit out and process backups for those sort of robo type deployments.
Excellent. See, Vu is asking, are Radar and Sonar separate modules, or are they bundled together as one single solution?
That's a great question. So they're separate applications that we offer at Rubrik as a SaaS service. There's a number of SKUs though that include both Radar and Sonar. I don't know, Christina, if you know more specifics on that, but I know there's ways to buy everything together.
Correct. If you go with Enterprise Edition or even the Complete Edition, you do get everything as a bundle. So yeah, there is a way to obviously purchase them separately, or you can get all these goodness into one bundle. So you have options.
Nice. Yeah, always good to have options. I like that. Bradford's asking, what about training for Rubrik? Someone who's new to Rubrik, they need to get started. They need to learn how to administer this, data protection and disaster recovery environment. What does Rubrik offer around that?
Yeah, I mean, we have a complete, we call it Rubrik University. So there's complete instructor-led training that can be, bundled into Rubrik when you go ahead with us. And on top of that, there's a lot of free digital learning courses that you can take on demand. We have our certification, the Rubrik Certified Systems Administrator. So those instructor-led courses really prep you to go ahead and take that certification as well. But Rubrik University is essentially going to be your one-stop shop for all of that. But we definitely have a lot of material for people to get up and going and get started.
Excellent.
And
Yeah,
we
and I
also
think
have a
that's a
very supportive community, the Guardians, right? So you can always
Yeah.
ask questions there and get support from your fellow practitioners.
very cool. Yeah, I didn't know about all that. And I think it's also a great place to point out the Rubrik 101 live product demos that are available there as well, to just kind of get started and see a lot of these different solutions or pieces that make up Rubrik, kind of in action. The link to that is there in the handouts tab. Another question they're asking, what about Rubrik and Azure Stack HCI? I'm not sure if that's available today or not.
Do believe it is supported. Just how that support's done, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's done native or if it's done utilizing the Rubrik backup service, but we definitely have support for Azure Stack. And I believe it's out now. So I can't think of any customers that we have running Azure Stack. I'm sure there's some there. Otherwise, we wouldn't have built it. But there's definitely support there. I see there's a data sheet on the website and everything as well. So
Nice. Nice. And then Kelly's asking, when it comes to getting data off-site, is there any way to throttle or control or manage the bandwidth that's consumed by that?
yes, yeah, definitely. You can enable network throttling on both the replication. So that's when we replicate from one Rubrik appliance to another. So we usually do that for DR purposes, right? So you'll take the most 5 recent backups and we'll make sure they're always replicating over to another location. In case one goes down, we can restore over there. So there's definitely there's network throttling for there, and there's also network throttling for the archive capability as well. So as we're sort of processing backups on the other side of the chain, now on the end of the chain, we're taking the older ones and we're sticking them up in the cloud to keep them up there. We can definitely throttle that as well.
Excellent. And then what about backing up or protecting data that's running in a SaaS or stored in a SaaS cloud solution?
Yeah, that's going to depend on what that SaaS solution is. So currently, right now, for SaaS, we support Microsoft 365. So all of your email, your OneDrive, your Teams, and SharePoint Online. So we definitely support that in terms of SaaS-based backups.
Excellent. And I know we're trying to keep these relatively short. Any other questions there you want to make sure that we cover before we wrap up?
Let me take a quick peek.
Yeah, I'm also looking. I think we got most of them, right?
I believe
think
so.
so.
Yeah.
All right. Here's one that just came in. I think it's good, and that is, what's the best way to get started with Rubrik?
I'll definitely reach out, and we'll certainly get you in touch with your local account teams there for whatever region you're in. But head to rubrik.com. We're also currently working on sort of a test drive type capability where you can go in and do a bunch of labs and things like that. So that should be coming out very, very soon. And that's definitely a good way to get in there and get your hands dirty. And you'll see other things like, so you'll see events usually in your area, or now they're online, obviously. But we host these events where we bring in people and run through a bunch of different scenarios, and we actually have labs available to run through there and lab manuals as well. So
nice. All right. Well, excellent. Well, thanks so much for your presentation, Christina, and thanks for the demo, Mike. Appreciate you being on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for the great questions.
And thank you to Rubrik for supporting the event today. Don't forget the links there in the handouts tab to join Rubrik for their upcoming 101 Rubrik Live events and also to get started with Rubrik. Before we go, I do want to announce the winner of our Amazon $300 gift card door prize. This is going to Zach Hahn from Indiana. Congratulations, Jack Hahn from Indiana. And we'll reach out to our best question prize winner as well. Thanks to everyone who joined us on the webinar today. We always appreciate your support. Hope that you learned a lot and have a great day. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.